Action.
All right, welcome and good morning. We are Farotech. My name is Todd Smith. I'm the VP of Partner Growth, and I'm joined by Chris Carr, CEO of Farotech. Chris, thanks for joining me for a few minutes this morning.
Yeah, this is great.
So today we are talking about business marketing plans and how they can help you succeed. This is the blog that we're referring to. It's something that Chris wrote. The first thing that Chris mentions in this blog is that 50% of small businesses do not have a plan in writing. And I don't know if you've ever heard this expression, Chris, but if you plan to fail, then fail to plan. Now, I've worked in small, medium-sized business my entire career, and it's one of those things that, you know, you're running a business, you've got employees, you've got sales, you've got costs, and you're surrounded by everything that's just sort of like important and urgent. But the planning stage is one of those things that, although it's important, it never seems to make it to the urgent quadrant, and that's difficult. I mean, you own a small business, you know what that's like. You know, how many times have you written a business plan or a marketing plan for your own self? You know, so that's one of the things that, you know, we at Farotech like to do is really help companies sort of figure out, like, you know, take a step back and let's look at the bigger picture of like what a marketing plan looks like. So, what would you recommend? You know, just from a business owner's perspective to another business owner, like how do you even go about that? Because it sounds like such a daunting task, marketing plan.
Yep. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that you're going to need, unless you are a very rare breed, you're going to need accountability.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just nobody. So we use that expression, kind of making the donuts, and you can wake up one day and you just got to make the donuts.
Yep.
You know? I think it was from Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. But
yep, I think it was.
And then,
time to make the donuts.
Time to make the donuts.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, like, it makes sense. I mean, if you got a drive-through and there's 1,000 people coming to your window, you got to make the donuts. That's how you kind of live. You kind of live this quiet life of desperation, right? But what happens here is that if you don't take a step back and try to stop working in the business and start working on the business, you'll never really reach the growth potential. And so we at Farotech, we have hired a company called CEO Think Tank, and CEO Think Tank tells us basically that they allow us to scale our business. We're doing something called Rockefeller habits. And in that process, we are paying for that accountability. And that accountability is crucial because we pay them so much money that we don't show up without our homework done. So that's one of the things you do is that's a form of accountability. But one of the things that I recommend from a marketing perspective of that business plan is to use use a third-party company that has subject matter experts.
Okay.
Because I think what can happen here is, you know, you can either have a marketing guy or gal or just a small team, and they're so close to it that sometimes they don't
see the big picture
for what it is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I remember even when you started working here,
it was a long time ago.
I was like, yeah, this is what we do. And you were like, why do you do that? I'm like, well, we do that because, well, I don't know why we do that. But we've always done that.
Right. That's because we always did it. Yeah, just do it.
Exactly. Just do it. All right. But it was very refreshing. And how much have we changed simply because someone outside of our own company came and forced us to ask that question?
Yeah, that's a good point. So when you look at that process of like helping somebody build like a marketing plan, like where do you even start? It's like sitting down to write a book. Like, where do you start?
Well, that's a great question. So we develop a gap assessment. And the gap assessment allows us, whenever we work with a client, we're going to take the first 2 months to take a deep dive into where they're going. Now, 9 times out of 10, it's going to go into what we call our system-based model. And let me kind of show you what that looks like. So our system, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Give me 1 second here. So I'm going to share my screen. How about now?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Just give me 2 seconds here.
Go ahead. Sure.
How about now?
I got it. Now.
So this is a system we built over 19 years. A lot of it shouldn't feel like rocket science, but what you should know here is that we believe in what's called a flywheel. And a flywheel essentially means that if you generate really great marketing and then you nurture that process and convert that process and have a system to ask for referrals, those referrals and the really great work and the really great products and services that you have turned into more leads. And so what happens is it self-generates. But the part of this process that we think is very important is to understand in the beginning, who are your potential buyers? And so we develop a gap assessment to try to figure that out. The next thing we do is something called usability conversion analysis. This is a piece of software that goes on your website. It's a heat mapping software that looks at people's eye movements, their mouse movements, where they're going. It looks at the forums to figure out why they might be leaving early. It looks at how far are they scrolling. I can literally find out when you watch a video, the people's names who are watching this video and how long they watched it. Then in this process, we want to look at your SEO. If it's not a guarantee that SEO is always important for your industry, but 90% of the businesses, it does. It is important rather. Then you look at your content strategy, your whole lead nurturing strategy, which is probably the most commonly ignored strategy, your social media, paid advertising, video development, and then analytics and reporting. All right. So that is sort of what the entire system should look like. So when you go and you develop a plan, what I want to be able to do is know this is the system, this is the framework. And when I know kind of the spinal cord of this whole thing, what I can do is I can get very specific about how content basically weaves in and out of that system. When you don't do that, it's kind of like, it's kind of the Wild West.
Gotcha. So talk to me about like, how does the marketing plan help a company like have room to grow or create some scalability?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that what I find is that if you're, whether you're project based or whether you're in a scenario where you don't have the big picture in mind, when you reach those goals, the marketing meeting says, well, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
When you develop a process through a gap assessment, we develop a 3 to 5 year roadmap to scale your business. Very rarely are we saying what's next. We have it all mapped out. And so it's designed to scale, because I can't snap my fingers and you have videos on your homepage and on all the critical pages of your website. I can't create a website in the snap of a finger that has infographics that are very data rich. I can't snap my fingers and have you on the first page of Google for all of the critical keywords that you need to do. And I can keep telling this story. We're not one snap of the finger away from doing that.
Right.
What I need to be able to do is I need to be able to take short-term goals and long-term goals. Short-term goals are going to be the quick wins that we can do to keep our clients happy. But the long-term initiatives are what helps them scale.
Gotcha.
What helps them really, really grow.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So is that where like A/B testing and SEO come in? Is that kind of where that is?
Well, we developed the plan of action, and we it's almost like we shoot the rocket into space.
Gotcha.
And then, I literally use this analogy in my sales slides. I shoot the rocket into space based upon best practices, based upon past experience, based upon hunches, based upon a bunch of different things.
Okay.
But what I don't want to do is just shoot it off to space and just hope it reaches the moon.
Right.
I mean, just like the original Apollo rockets, it turned left and it turned right. I mean, there's an analogy that said they were off course like 97% of the time. So that's what I want to be able to do is I want to measure your marketing and keep adjusting left and right and left and right.
Gotcha.
So maybe I'm going to tweak the headlines. Maybe I'm going to tweak the pictures. Maybe I'm going to put the forms. I'm going to make the form shorter. Maybe I'm going to look and try to find out, are there any barriers to entry? And as we refine, we're going to be examining the results, and it's just it should get better and better and better. The success that you're looking for is when you can make data-driven decisions about your marketing.
Gotcha.
And that's why you use a company like us. And that's what you should expect from a marketing plan. Like it's almost like if you wrote the Declaration of Independence and then, the Constitution, and left no room for amendments,
right? Like
this country would have blown up. It was probably the bad time to start talking about this, but this country wouldn't. This country never would have been built to scale. You know what I mean? Like it's what makes the Constitution great is because it has amendments. That's the exact way marketing plans work.
Okay, so basically, this gap assessment it's a roadmap, but it's also nimble, and it basically moves as like sales grow or marketing grows or operations grow. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to throw this back at you,
Okay.
is that when you have a digital plan, I mean, you've been in sales, and then you've also, you've been at the forefront of how technology intersects with business.
Yeah.
What are you finding the differences between inbound and outbound? Because that's the question we get all the time. It's
Yeah.
like,
No, you're right.
What's better?
No, you're right. Well, I mean, I think that the difference between inbound and outbound, and really defining which one's better, is I don't really know that either one's better. They just kind of serve, two different roles. Like an inbound marketing strategy is really primarily for generating cold leads. And then what you do is you have the ability to warm them up through a nurturing process. And as you mentioned, through our unique process, that seems to be lacking for a lot of companies that we've seen. And then really the goal of the inbound marketing is really converting those leads into customers. And then eventually, they're such great customers of yours that they become brand ambassadors. Conversely, outbound, you're working with an existing list. So maybe these are prospects that you have before, maybe they're existing customers and you're looking to upsell them. And then what you're doing is you're crafting this specific message, based on a buyer persona. And then you'll set like a CPA, and then you'll manage the budget accordingly. The big thing for us is really just, taking advantage of that interruption marketing, and then really focus on awareness. And then, through the outbound process, you're reaching people who really don't know who you are yet. So inbound, they're kind of searching for you, and outbound, they don't really know you exist yet. So if you're a SaaS company and you're kind of new in the business, you might do a little more outbound if you're buying lists, or maybe you're working with a partner who has a list. But eventually, you're going to want to move into an inbound as well, because now you've got some brand awareness. Now you've got some case studies. Now you've got a process built. So really, the answer to that is really what we talk about is this hybrid approach, because it'll depend on where you are in your actual like sales cycle or life cycle of the company. And then, figuring out which strategy is best at the right time. The gap assessment that you talked about really allows for this ability to customize this strategy that's right for your business, and then gives you a plan like we talked about from the beginning. You take those 2 months and you really map out like the thought leadership, the target marketing, the messaging, identifying the buyers. And really at the end of the day is you want to be able to tell a fantastic story. And then you take that story and you just marry it with like strategic campaigns. So from our perspective, to answer your question, I don't know if I did that or not, but the hybrid approach is probably the best, but it's also a function of, what you are or where you are on your sort of life cycle as a company. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, I think, so we have a client called Life Brand, and Life Brand, super, super, super cool technology. In this day and age where, you go and you put so much content into social media. I'm talking about as an individual, you know what I mean? You're texting it to, you're tweeting at 2 a.m, or you're doing whatever, that stuff can kind of haunt you. And so what happens here is Life Brand came in and they said, hey, plug in all of your social media channels into our software, and we're going to use AI, and we're going to scrub through all of your social media.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, I know. And then it allows you from one click of a button,
right,
literally clean up your social media.
Yeah, that's kind of necessary.
Cool technology. Everybody that sees it says, hey, I want that.
Yeah.
The problem is that from a search perspective, nobody says, hey, today's the day I want to go find an AI software to clean up my social media.
Right. Yeah.
And so what happens is I can try to win in SEO because there are going to be certain people like that, but there's just going to be a lot of people. I got to interrupt their pattern. I got to, you know what I mean? Like
you got to create awareness.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, in the coronavirus, I think people were really pent up. They're at home and they're angry at anything.
Yeah.
And the things they're writing,
social media makes it easy.
I know, it's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I have friends, very logical and awesome friends, that I'm like, whoa, dude, you really went there with that. Yeah. And what that's going to do is that, let's say I'm thinking that individual knows he went there. And then as he's on Facebook or he's on whatever it is, he's going to see an ad that interrupts his pattern that says, hey, you know what? before you apply to your next job.
Yeah.
Clean up your profile.
Definitely.
And then he's going to say, well, I didn't even know something like that existed.
Yep.
Now, he didn't go to Facebook to say, hey, what's an AI program that's going to do that? He had to interrupt that pattern. But that's not where it stops. So that was an outbound type thing, right? And then it has to connect to your inbound so you can drip market to them, so you can get that lead score and engage them and follow how far are they along in that journey, and is it working? Is it not? What do I need to tweak? Things like that.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let me ask you another thing.
Sure.
You get here and someone just says, hey, you know what? It's cool that you want to create a marketing plan, but all we need is SEO.
Yeah. Gotcha. And
all I need is social media. Yeah.
And I think, the defense or how we would answer that is, we would go back to something that you've talked about in the past is like, what's driving that decision? What data do you have that uses that has allowed you to come to that decision? We look at, marketing more as like an ecosystem, not an individual solution. So I don't necessarily need SEO. SEO is part of the plan. I don't specifically just want to focus on social media because social media affects so many other pieces of it. That's why getting back to the gap assessment is important, because from the gap assessment, we can figure out the right target. We can figure out the ideal buyer persona, and then we can craft messaging that can be used in SEO, can be used in social, can be used in outbound, inbound. So from our perspective, maybe you feel like you just need SEO, but we would probably take a step back and say, what's the impact of SEO on your specific business, and really kind of look at the bigger picture of the ecosystem of your marketing mix. Because that's really what it's all about. Yep. Is not necessarily just moving like SEO 100%. Maybe it's moving SEO 60%, and then you're going to push your social media 20%. It's kind of like, you ever seen like somebody who works like an audio visual board? They're constantly moving like the decibels and moving everything. It's the same type of thing with marketing. You're moving different pieces, and then like you said before, you're sort of A/B testing. Oh no, treble's a little too high. Pull back the bass. So we're kind of doing the same thing. So really, we're kind of marketing DJs if you break it down.
Yeah, I don't want to go into the whole Megan Trainor. It's all about the bass. That's when the analogy just really hits the fan.
Oh, look at the time.
I promised myself I'd never do that.
Yeah.
I think one of the slogans that we have is systems, not solutions.
Yep.
I think that's going to be important to be in an aspect where, like, this was a hard question that was asked to me, and I was just like really taken back from it. I remember speaking with somebody, I think it was HubSpot or whatever it was. And I said, what we want is we want really good SEO. And he goes, why? I'm like, duh. I want to be on the first page of Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Duh.
Why?
He goes, why? Well, because the traffic's there and they're going to come to my website. Why do you want to come to your website? Because I want them to convert and turn into, I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, okay, cool. So now I'm an SEO. I got you on the first page of Google. When they come to your website,
what are they going to do?
Do you have clear messaging? Are they going to be nurtured? Are you going to, like what happens if you don't have all your ducks in a row so that it's in a system that the SEO drives leads, and then they get on to your website and they've engaged and they've got a cookie on the computer, and we're nurturing them and scoring them and dripping to them and educating them and converting them. And after they've been converted, delighting them and asking for referrals. I'm like, I just want SEO. He's like, you know what I mean? Like,
gotcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So I think I agree with you. You know what I mean? I don't think when you talk about inbound and outbound, I don't think that there's a right answer. I think it's both. And when I come to you and I just say, hey, I just want one solution, I don't think the answer is correct. I think it's a system, not a solution.
All right. Cool.
Cool. All right, cool. So we're going to end there. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Chris Carr. I'm the CEO of Farotech. This is Todd. He's Todd Smith. He's the VP of Partner Growth. Here's the deal. A lot of people come to us and they're afraid to engage with a marketing company because they feel like they're going to be sold. Todd and I spend so much time giving out free advice, which basically means it's a free consultation. You schedule a meeting with us and we look at all your stuff and we tell you where the holes are, where the cracks are, things you never even knew. Now, if you want to work with us, that's great. If you don't, that's also great, because you know what? I think you're going to learn so much from this experience that you'll either come back or you'll tell friends. We've been doing this for almost 19 years, and that's the reality, the phenomenon that's happened over and over again. So if you do want to work with us, would love for you to just go to our website or email us at info@farotech.com, or go to contact us, schedule a consultation. I promise you it's a very painless process. But want to thank you for joining us today. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check back often. Try to get notified for when we're doing these again. And we look forward to seeing you on the other side.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.